Welcome. My name is Sharitia Spruill. I'm with the Office of Economic Empowerment, and you are tuned in to our Money Talk Tuesday program, focusing on financial aid for college-bound students. Money Talk Tuesdays is our free weekly virtual workshop program through the Office of Economic Empowerment. For those of you who are joining us, if you haven't registered, that registration link allows you to receive emails from us, but stay tuned, I got some more information about that. The office, I'm gonna go over our quick little agenda here. The Office of Economic Empowerment, we're gonna talk a little bit about what we do. We're gonna go over some disclosures, housekeeping, and then I'll introduce our two presenters, Bianca Perez of Inversant and Adam Metch of the College Advisor of New England. A little bit about them. Bianca is the programs coordinator for Inversant. She's been specifically working recently with families one-on-one through this pandemic, but also specifically around the college admissions process. And Adam Metch from the College Advisor of New England is the president of the College Advisors of New England and a certified educational planner. The College Advisor of New England does help families through college selections, admissions, and financial aid strategies, but I'll let them introduce a little bit more about the work that they do in just a few moments. The Office of Economic Empowerment is also known as OEE. You'll hear us reference that a lot. It's a department within the Office of the Treasurer and Receiver General of Massachusetts, and we're tasked with supporting, advocating, and facilitating policies that empower all Massachusetts residents. Our programs serve women, family, high school students, veterans, and seniors, and our priorities include closing the wage gap, increasing access to financial education, improving college affordability, and investing in STEM careers and education. This is our disclosure. This is a Zoom webinar and is being recorded. The recording may be uploaded to public websites for future use, and the webinar is also being streamed live on Facebook. Any information shared through the question function. There's a little Q&A function at the bottom of the app if you're watching us on the app. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can drop your questions in the comment section. But anything posted in the Zoom question box is anonymous. But please note the chat function is subject to public record laws and is such not anonymous. And naturally on Facebook, that's not as anonymous either. For housekeeping, this is a small group, but this is a webinar, so you won't be able to see any of the participants. You'll only be able to see the speakers, such as myself and Bianca and Adam. And then we will have the opportunity or the ability to call on participants. There is a raise your hand function if you want to speak, or otherwise leave your comments in the chat function. Q&A is available throughout the webinar, and we will be doing an exit poll. It's 3 questions at the very end. We'll just ask that you fill that out, and for anybody who's watching later on or on Facebook, there will be a survey available following this webinar. If you have any questions, thank you, first of all. And if you have any questions, contact us at moneytalk@tre.state.ma.us. And we're also, like I said, we're on Facebook. Follow us, like us, and you will receive more information about future Money Talks. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Bianca, and let's get started.
There you go.
Okay, fantastic. So hello, everybody. I'm really glad to be here today to talk a little bit about Inversant and to talk about the work that we've been doing with senior families around COVID-19. Inversant kind of has like a 3-pronged approach on how we go about helping parents empower themselves to be advocates during the college process. We have a scholarship program, and we also have the financial literacy part where we offer workshops around different topics, college topics. And then we also have the like a child savings account. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we can get started on this presentation. Okay. So we're gonna start off by talking about like the different, like what we have to do in order to start this financial aid process. Just basics. Everyone has to fill out a FAFSA. Everybody should fill out a FAFSA. It's free, it's online, it's for everyone. And every year your child or you, if you decide to go to school, will have to do it. So it's good for both you and your whole family to know how to do this. So they'll be able to take care of it by themselves, like when they have to keep reapplying. So hold on one second. I'm having some serious difficulties with my slide. All right, cool. So when you're filling out your FAFSA, you are going to be looking to find your EFC, which is your expected family contribution. The government and colleges use this to determine how much aid you're going to get. So for example, to calculate your EFC, you're going to need to provide the financial information for both students, for all your students, and all, like pretty much your tax information you're going to put on this EFC. It's going to calculate your EFC. So it's going to be your income and assets from both parents. And another thing that affects your EFC is the household size and the number of students that are in college. So this here is an example of a sample award letter that a family has received. As you can see, we have here, this is broken up already into gifts, loans, and work study. On your standard financial aid letter, you're not gonna find this. It's not gonna be as neatly placed like this. And it's also been said to be kind of confusing to navigate and read. So we really want people to take a look at the kind of language that they're using. Even though they've made strides in trying to make these letters a lot more universal and easier for families to read, they are really difficult to navigate. So I would definitely want you guys to take a look at this. So as you can see here, we have gifts that are totaling about almost $17,000. We have loans, your federal loans, which total about $5,500, and work study, which isn't always guaranteed money. So I tend to tell parents not to really count that. Particularly now, a lot of parents that their children have already applied to school and they have gotten their award letters and they're getting ready to go. And then with COVID-19, a lot of universities are not opening up for past virtual learning until January of 2021. So I tell a lot of parents to make sure to kind of relook at their award letters to see what colleges and universities plan on doing about, like, let's say if they're gonna stay on campus or anything like that. Because it's really important to make sure that you as a parent are advocating for yourself and not getting paid more money, or not having to pay more money that your child's not going to have the full college experience. Okay. So here we have, we also like to tell parents that you should research direct and indirect costs. So this is a sample here of all your college costs. You see your tuition and fees, room and board. Your room and board, it's like, this is a sample, is $15,270. If you're going to be working on digital engagement, and if you're going to be working virtually for a whole semester, you really need to talk to the universities that you've already applied to about appealing that, and what their process is going to look like for possibly refunding that money. And then you have some indirect costs like supplies and just other, like transportation, health insurance, and whatever that might be. So that for a total is about $34,000. So if you live on campus, this is like, so we tell parents to always calculate their financial gap. This is how you know what's gonna work best for your family and making your choices for school. So an award letter might look really, really beautiful and like, oh yes, I'm getting into this school and we have all this money coming in. But a lot of times these things can be disguised as loans, or there might be a better financial package through a different institution. So this is right here, we're calculating the financial gap. This totals about $32,160. So after financial aid and all these other things, or this includes the gap for the indirect costs. So like being able to calculate these things is very important for your family, because then you'll know what you're looking at to pay for that year. Now, if you have been affected by COVID-19, or like or your job in general has been affected, even if COVID-19 wasn't happening, there are processes that you can take to ensure, like to make sure that your financial package is fair and reflects what you're currently making right now. So what I would always suggest is to be your biggest advocate. I know sometimes in filling out these applications and going through these processes, particularly if you've never gone through these processes before, can be really, really intimidating and difficult. So I always urge parents to make sure to do your research. Like you want to review all your financial aid packages. So let's say you received 3 financial aid packages from your top choice schools. You're gonna want to calculate all those gaps. That way you and your student can talk about what's gonna work best for your family, and if that's a debt that you'd want to take on. The same way you would invest or do research and investing in a home or a car is the same way you want to think about investing in your education, because that's what it is. It is an investment. The next piece of advice that we would like to give is appeals. If your income has changed since you applied for FAFSA or filled out your CSS profile, definitely appeal. Particularly around COVID-19, there's a ton of articles, and I'll definitely share the links that you guys can take a look at. We have here, I know that Experian had come out with a kind of like a how-to list of how you can request more financial aid. So you can definitely go through the CARE Act. You can also actually appeal your financial aid. And we have another resource here called Swift Student, where it's going to help you kind of to help you write a financial appeal letter for free. And most times if you want to appeal your financial aid for a particular college or university, you can just go straight on their site and they'll have an application there and with a listing of a process of how you can go ahead and do that. Since I have been taking senior parent calls this year, this is one of the biggest pieces of advice I've been giving parents. There's been a lot of communities hit very hard by COVID-19, and where both incomes or both parents in the house have gone down to zero. And they, there's parents who would want to take out loans or different kinds of things, but I would always suggest to try to appeal that financial aid first before you take out any loans, because we are in kind of like uncertain times. All right, cool. So, and then our last piece of advice would be to negotiate. Again, the biggest tool that you have is your voice. You are paying $26,000 possibly a year to go to a college. Make sure that you are getting your best bang for your buck. I know there's like institutional challenges and all kinds of different things that go into this, but the student loan crisis is super real now. And I feel like with COVID-19, maybe things are starting to change. There's a lot happening in the world, things are starting to change. But until we've reached some kind of equitable place, negotiate for yourself and for your family. And if you need any kind of resources for that, Inversant will totally help with providing any kind of resources to help you advocate for you and your children. So in conclusion, we at Inversant want to make college affordable and achievable. So the way we do that is by increasing aids and reducing costs. This is like our typical presentation that we would show any high school family, But now during COVID, like these things are very, very important to really kind of like put into perspective, particularly in increasing your aids. We're in a crisis right now. So it's really important that you do your research, you try to reduce your costs, you save. I know it might be easier said than done, particularly right now, but there are different ways to be able to do this. So thank you, everybody. This is our information here, and I'm sure that the Office of Financial Empowerment will be sending out kind of a follow-up after this with all of our information. If you have any questions for us around scholarships or around appeals or around our program, or you're interested in joining our program, we would be happy to answer any of those for you. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess I'm up. Hi, folks. My name is Adam Metch, and I'm the director of the College Advisor of New England. It's a private company. I started it 25 years ago, and we have offices in New York as well as in Western Massachusetts. Our process is based on integrating the admissions and the financial aid pieces together, because schools make decisions about who gets admitted, as well as how much money a student receives based on those factors affecting each other. So a student who is statistically a very, very strong applicant relative to the rest of the student body coming in tends to get a higher percentage of their financial need met. And so it's important to understand some of those statistics, as Bianca was talking about earlier, doing research. And don't wait until senior year, for example, when you're filling out financial aid forms, to then become concerned about the costs. As you're researching schools during the admissions process, you want to find out, not only do they require the FAFSA, because every school does, but do they also require the CSS profile application? So that's required by about 3/4 of the private schools in the Northeast, for example. And it's actually a more invasive form than the FAFSA form. There is a small fee to file the CSS profile application. And if a school is using that CSS profile application, it means that they're also calculating demonstrated need on a different formula than the federal formula. And so understanding what formula the school uses and understanding what their history is in terms of percentage of need met would help you understand at least where you are on the radar. So if you are going to appeal for more financial aid, you'll know exactly what you're eligible for. So I am not a financial planner. I want to make this distinction. Families pay us a fee. We begin working with students as early as the sophomore year. And we want to provide unbiased, objective advice. There are people in the financial community who are marketing insurance and annuities, and they also do financial aid on the side. Really, they're using financial aid as a conduit to be able to provide financial investment services as well. And I feel that's a conflict of interest, because you might be paying them a fee to help with financial aid applications and maybe some financial aid strategy, but then they're going to get a commission on some product. So is that advice really the smartest advice that they're giving, or is there a conflict of interest? And also, those folks are not adept at working directly with students. And I will show you some financial aid award letters and case studies in a little while that could demonstrate to you how different schools package financial aid. So your ability to afford a school is going to be contingent not only on understanding the numbers and what you're eligible for, but also how well the student fits with the school. And you'll see that schools have different ways of calculating financial aid. So at the very basic level, it's important to understand your dates, your timelines, and the basic forms. Financial aid forms get filed roughly November, December of the senior year in high school. They'll be based on the assets as of the day that you're filing for financial aid, and they will be looking at the income for the tax year 2 years prior. So for students who are going to be high school seniors, will be graduating high school 2021. Their first college semester will be 2021. That means that the financial aid calculation will be based on their income from 2019. So the earlier you understand the mechanics of the formulas before your taxes are filed 2 years prior, the better leverage you have in how things get positioned on the financial aid forms. When Bianca was talking about the estimated family contribution, that is the number generated from the FAFSA application, and it represents on paper the minimum that a family would have to pay. It doesn't act, it's very important to not get confused about this, because families will think, well, my EFC, for example, was $16,000, but this school is expecting us to pay $25,000. What you have to understand is that schools are not obligated to meet 100% of demonstrated need. If in the example I was just explaining, let's say the college advertised price tag is $50,000 and the EFC was $16,000, that means there would be an eligibility for financial aid of $34,000. If the school does not have the money to meet 100% of need for all students, or your student applicant is not as strong of an applicant, maybe the school will give you half of that $34,000, or maybe they'll give you $25,000 of the $34,000. So it means that your actual cost is going to be your EFC of that $16,000 plus any unmet need. And so it's really important to understand that the EFC is not exactly what it's going to cost, but it's a beginning benchmark. And if you don't know that number, then you won't really know how to begin appealing for more financial aid. So when your financial aid forms get filed in the early winter of the senior year, in the late winter, early spring of senior year is when schools will send the financial aid award letters, and then you have until May 1st to make a decision on whether to enroll or not. But it's in between that May 1st deadline for enrollment and when you receive the financial aid award to reevaluate all the options and have conversations with the financial aid office about any changes in income, any special circumstances such as a loss of a job, any high medical expenses, maybe you have to take care of a grandparent, maybe there's some involuntary financial hardships. You want to document all of that stuff. On the FAFSA form, there's no place to record any of those special circumstances. They're going to calculate the EFC just based on the raw data. So it's incumbent upon you to communicate that information to the financial aid office. You can do so prior to them packaging the financial aid and or after you receive the financial aid offer. Bianca was using the term gap. In financial aid terms, what the gap is the unmet need. So if you were eligible for $20,000 and the school only gave you $10,000, that would be a gap of $10,000 of unmet need. And again, it's important to understand what the projected cost is going to be after financial aid, so you are not making rush decisions in the spring of the senior year and not understanding what your obligations are. Because as she showed you on the slide, the financial aid package will be comprised of gift aid, scholarships and grants that you don't owe back, as well as interest-free and subsidized loans, and possibly some work study money to help pay for those unbilled expenses like books and supplies. I wanted to pick up on another concept that she mentioned with regard to when you're appealing financial aid offers, the number of people that are helping you through the financial aid process. It's basically you and the college. But think about, for example, when you buy a house or when you buy a condo, there's a real estate agent, there's a mortgage lender, and there's an attorney involved to make sure the transaction goes through smoothly. But when you look at how a lot of families will purchase a college education, a lot of times it's based on the emotions of a teenager, and parents are scrambling. So, we too believe that we want to empower parents in their role because you need to be involved. But you want to be as strategic with the financial component of picking a school as you would be when you're shopping for any other high ticket item. And it means understanding in advance what you could, like for example, when you buy a house, you get pre-qualified for a mortgage, so you know that you're shopping in the right neighborhood. Same thing with regard to understanding how school policies and financial aid and the EFC all work. That's a lot of the work that we do with our families. We do early projections and make sure that they have cash flow and savings to be able to meet what the expectations are from any number of schools. And then we will develop a list of schools for the student based on their social and academic interests that also meet the financial concerns of the family. So, so that's a little bit on that. I'm going to show you some slides now. Pull it up to demonstrate some case studies and some financial aid awards. Bear with me a second till I bring this up. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so this is a student, her name is Nicole. These are actual students that we've worked with. You can see this is her high school GPA, 2.9. Her SAT scores were basically on the national average. And the schools that she was accepted to are these 4 schools right here. Elizabethtown College in Pennsylvania, Hofstra on Long Island in New York, Colby Sawyer in New Hampshire, and Wittenberg University in Ohio. She was denied at Salve Regina and Bryant Universities, both in Rhode Island. So this is a financial aid award letter, and as Bianca was saying, they can be confusing to look at because there's no uniform standard. Each school has their own financial aid award letter, and so when you're comparing them side by side, what we do is we put them on spreadsheets, on columns for families to be able to compare them. But you have to understand each of these components. So basically you have, you've got the estimated cost. Now this is basically in 2006. And I do this to show you some trends. The cost of attendance that year for Elizabethtown was $36,000. The EFC, according to the FAFSA form, was just over $20,000, which means a demonstrated financial need of a little over $15,000. And Elizabethtown met 80% of her demonstrated need, a total of $12,125. And you can see right here, she got an $8,000 grant, a $2,625 interest-free deferred loan, and then a $1,500 work study job. It was not an outstanding award, but it wasn't terrible either. The next school, Hofstra, I didn't expect her to receive a lot of money because they don't have a good financial aid track record. And it was okay because she applied to enough schools to really guarantee that she would have enough options. So if one particular school didn't really work out with the financial aid, then she would have some leverage, some other choices. So very similar cost of attendance to Elizabethtown College, $36,000 and some change. Same EFC because Hofstra uses only the FAFSA, just like Elizabethtown. So we're not worried about the EFC according to the CSS profile application. And so when we do the subtraction, the demonstrated need at Hofstra is $15,873. All they gave her was a $5,635 of self-help aid, which was comprised of a loan and work study. Basically, they're saying to her, we don't have a lot of money. You're an average academic applicant, and you're a Caucasian student from the Northeast. You're not bringing any geographical or racial diversity to our campus. And she didn't have, she wasn't like having SAT scores through the roof. She wasn't as competitive of a student. So they said, we'll admit you, but we're going to give more money to other students who are more desirable to us. And so this is the next school that she got into, Wittenberg University. The cost of attendance at Wittenberg was $40,700. EFC, same EFC, $20,000 and change. The difference is the demonstrated need or eligibility for aid of $20,000 and change. Wittenberg met 100% of her need. She received the $20,045. You can see that it's comprised of about a $13,600 in free gift aid, and then the rest was loans and work study. So it was a very good award. The point I want to make is that when you look at the statistics, the admission statistics of these three schools, these are the high school statistics of students who are admitted to Wittenberg, where she got admitted, but she got rejected by Salve, Regina, and Bryant. But when you look at it, she not only got into Wittenberg, which was the most selective school. See, they have a higher GPA and a higher SAT score for entering freshman students. And this is a while back when the SAT score was on a 2400 scale. But not only did she get admitted to a more selective school, but Wittenberg met 100% of her need. So the point that I want to make is the importance of location. It doesn't mean that your kids have to go, to Ohio or some far off state to go to school, but it is a strategy that can give leverage. And it demonstrates that schools are always looking for geographical diversity. Okay. The next students that I want to show you, there's two students, Rachel and Jesse. You can see here that Rachel is the more competitive high school student, higher SAT score, higher GPA. They both applied and got admitted to UMass Amherst. And the strategy I want to show you is the importance of the choice of major and the student's merit rating. In other words, how competitive they are for how competitive they are in the admissions pool, and how these two factors will affect how much money a student receives. So this is Jesse's award letter to UMass Amherst. It's from 2012. The cost of education that year was a little over $25,000. The EFC, and this FM means federal methodology. That's because UMass Amherst only uses the FAFSA. $9,200. The difference is the eligibility or demonstrated need of $16,179, and UMass met only 55% of Jesse's financial need. Gave Jesse a total of almost $9,000. By comparison, this is Rachel's award letter. This got printed from their online portal. That's why it looks different. Same cost of attendance. The EFC is zero. This was a single mother with very modest income. So Rachel was eligible for the entire cost of attendance. And UMass gave her $21,594. They met 86% of need. And if you look up and down this list, you would notice that the majority of that money is grants and scholarships. But the point that I want to demonstrate is, here's a school, a public university, and it's reasonable to assume that the public universities, which are using taxpayer dollars, are there to level the playing field and help lessen the gap and help college become as affordable as possible to families. So why are they playing these games where they're being inconsistent on how they're packaging financial aid? The reason that Jesse's need was met only 55% and Rachel's was 86% were several factors. Jesse applied to the Eisenberg School of Business and got in. It's one of the most competitive schools in the university to get into. And Rachel wanted to study the classics, a very small department. And so there are just not a lot of kids applying into classics. And so that made Rachel a little bit more unique. Rachel was also the stronger student, and so was more desirable to UMass, and she fit the enrollment needs of the school. So understanding what the school's enrollment objectives are, as well as how competitive your student is, can make a difference. So yes, it's critical to understand the EFC and what you're eligible for, but it doesn't guarantee you will know exactly what it's going to cost you. So you've got to do your research. Now, this is Jesse's financial aid award letter to Union College, right outside of Albany, New York. So Jesse got accepted to Union College, private school, $58,235. EFC is higher than what I showed you before. It's almost $17,000. That's because Union College uses the institutional methodology for their calculation, meaning they use the CSS profile application. Jesse had a demonstrated need of $41,576 at the Union, and Union met 100% of Jesse's need. 80% of it, or $32,000 and change, was outright grant money. Does not have to pay it back. It's a free gift. And only 20% was in the form of loans and work study. So this was an outstanding aid award. And it also demonstrates why it's important to not just fall in love with one school and cast a wide enough net. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is what schools will publish in terms of their data online, using the College Board website, for example, collegeboard.org. The student that I'm going to show you their award letters of is a student named Mei Lin. And two of the schools she applied to and got accepted to were George Washington University in DC, as well as Richmond, University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia. Now, on the College Board website, on their financial aid tab for the school, when you look up a school, they tell you what their average percentage of need met is. So GW, George Washington, is saying we meet on average 94% of demonstrated need. Okay, now here's the award letter for Mei Lin at GW. Here's the cost of attendance that year at GW. This is 2012. It's about a $60,000 cost of attendance that year. There's the EFC, okay, 26,000 and change. Demonstrated need, 33,000, little over 33,000. Mei Lin received $27,300. They met 82% of her need, not 94%. Okay, 94% was just an average, but yet there's still room to ask for more money because they met a lower percentage than what they average. So it would be worth calling the school financial aid office or writing a letter and saying, I'm wondering why you didn't fill our demonstrated need. Were there any exceptions that you took when you saw the financial aid application? And now let's look at University of Richmond. On the College Board website, they say that they meet 100% of demonstrated need. Now, you know, you don't have to be a mathematician to realize that in order to arrive at an average of 100% means that you give 100% of the financial aid applicants 100% of their need, okay? But in Mei Lin's case, here's the cost of attendance for University of Richmond. There's the EFC, demonstrated need of 29,000 and change. They only met 56% of her financial need. What the heck happened to meeting 100% of their need? When you compare it to George Washington, both schools use the same formula, yet it's a $44,000 difference over 4 years in terms of the net cost to the parent or to the family. So now, even though Richmond said we meet 100% of the need, here they clearly haven't. And here's some of the tactics that schools will utilize. They can recalculate your need based on their subjective professional judgment. When you enter your financial data on the applications, they may see some things that look like inconsistencies. And in this specific case, the mother had it was a single mom, she owned some real estate, and when reporting the value of the property, I advised her to report a conservative number, and there was reasons behind it. But schools will often use inflation indexes and not very specific indexes in order to make their arbitrary judgments. And so when I looked at this and I looked at the award letter, I coached the mother on what to say when calling the financial aid office and simply inquire and say, how come your numbers don't match mine? And turns out the school said, well, we think the properties are worth more. Well, that opened the door for Mei Lin's mom to be able to justify why the values of those properties were what we said they were. And so based on that appeal, they did get a little bit more money, but in the long run, Mei Lin wound up going to George Washington University and graduating on time. So that's it for my slides. I'm going to stop my screen share, and I'm going to pass it on to our host.
Hello.
Hello.
I think that we had a question pop up in the chat, was talking about what are the avenues, resources one can use to appeal again. It looks like Bianca posted the link, but did we want to repeat that just in case folks can't see the chat?
Definitely. So pretty much when you want to appeal your financial aid at any institution, so if you go onto their website and if you type into the search, you'll always be able to find their appeal process. But also MIFA has some really great resources to kind of look at. And I also added a link for a resource that will help you write your appeal letter for free. But it's a super simple process. I've been helping families go walk through it. Many families walk through it during this time. Again, if you have any questions, like MIFA has like a really great resource for that.
I wanted to mention that because your aid award and your applications will be based on income from 2 years prior, a lot has changed in the last 2 years, even without the pandemic. There could be a divorce, there could be a loss of a job. And so you definitely want to communicate any of those hardships to the financial aid office. They'll come back with a response. You could ask again. You could continue to be persistent. Understand that when you appeal for financial aid, you would be appealing through the financial aid office. But given the circumstances and some of the bailout that the government has tried to provide to universities and colleges in the pandemic crisis, they have given schools, I think it's anywhere from about $300,000 to $1.5 million to distribute to students and applicants who are going to enroll if they've been affected by the pandemic in any way. And if they don't use that money, they'll lose it. So if the school denies you from your appeal through the financial aid office, you might want to also specifically ask about money given to the school through the CARES Act.
I would also like to add, if there's been any stock changes in your 529, you should definitely try to appeal that as well, because that's part of your assets.
Thank you. I'm going to give it one more moment to see if anybody has any questions. But while you're doing that, while you're thinking of your questions, we have a quick little 3-question exit poll for folks that are participating live with us on Zoom today. If you don't mind just filling that out. I'm going to leave it up there for a few moments, but otherwise, Facebook, we are on Facebook, the Office of Economic Empowerment. Adam, I'm not sure if you guys are on Facebook or Inversant.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Be sure to follow them on Facebook as well. I did post the links in our chat. Again, they will be distributed in our email blast following this. And also be sure to sign up for our OEE newsletters. We try to send out as much information and programs and events and things that are going on with the office that you might find useful. So you're welcome to sign up there. That link will also be included in the email that's coming out to you.
Shai, I'd also like, if it's okay, to give a shout out to our sister organization, which is called the Hildreth Institute. Today they're having on their Facebook Live a watch party for a discussion that they had about student loans and like about private student loans. I'll also drop the link in our chat message right now if anybody wants to join this evening. I think what's really unique about Inversant and their sister organizations is that we kind of hit different approaches to be able to hit the student loan crisis along with like the education, like the depths of the education inequity in our communities. So again, I will drop that link in our chat, and I really hope some of you get to make it. It'd be great for students to also hear what people who have recently graduated college are going through with their student loans.
Thank you. That's all that I have. Thank you, Bianca and Adam, so much for joining us for this talk. Like I said, follow us on Facebook, email us if you have any questions, and if not, hopefully we'll see you next week for our next talk. Yeah, so have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.